Hey, this is Tor from TC here at the guitar room in our headquarters in Denmark. And today I'm going to talk about the TonePrint Editor. The TonePrint Editor is really about creating your dream pedal from scratch. And I'm going to show you a little bit about how you can do that. I'm not going to go into every single parameter in this video, but I'm going to give you some little hints and some little tricks as to how you can use the editor to best advantage. So what I have here is my Gibson Les Paul into an old Vox AC30. And between those, I have my Flashback X4 connected to my Mac, and I already cheated and downloaded the TonePrint Editor. So the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to start up the editor, and it's this little icon here. And you'll notice that as soon as I start it up, it's already going to have the Flashback X4 parameters ready. So here's the editor, and you'll notice there's some different screens here. And first, I'm going to tell you about what I'm going to try to do today, and I'm going to do a sort of an analog sounding delay with some fairly short delay times that I personally would use for, let's say, for lead kinds of stuff. Something that's not too much in the way, that just gives a bit of room to the sound. So first thing I'm going to talk about is how to get some of the standard sounds that you can get with the TonePrint Editor. Over here in this area called the template tone print, there are some different templates that we've done to kind of get you started. And by the time you see this video, there might actually be even more than what you see here. I'm going to start with the 2291, which is a totally clean, absolutely pristine sounding delay. So I'm going to pick that. This is a totally clean sounding delay. What I play is exactly the same thing that I get from the delay repeats. Of course, if I wanted to get something else like a ping pong or a modulated delay or tape or analog echoes, you can start with one of those templates and kind of go from there. It helps you a little bit kind of starting out how to dial the sound in. So the next thing I'm going to do is look at the delay parameters over here on my right side of the screen, and it's the parameters you see over here. And the first thing I'm going to do is work a little bit with the EQ, because as you can see, it's absolutely flat right now. There's no high cut, there's no low cut. What I want to do is make the delays a little bit darker. And I'm going to start by taking the feedback high cut and bring it down a little bit. And this is the feedback high cut parameter. As you can hear, they get darker, but I want them even darker. Maybe even a little bit darker than that. Kind of like that. What I want to do as well, to make sure that the delays don't get too boomy when they fade out, I want to remove a little bit of the low end as well. Not a lot, but just a little bit. Kind of like this. So for that, I'm using the feedback low cut. You can also see that I can control the delay time. The delay time I can actually control both on the editor screen, but I can also control it on the pedal itself. So if you notice right now, when I'm turning the delay time knob, you'll see that the delay time is also moving on the editor. So that means that I have two options of dialing something in. And I know that my preferred delay time is roughly around 400 milliseconds. So I'm going to dial that in like that. In the same way, I can control the feedback. As you can see, the feedback is now jumping up and down because I'm moving the knob. And I can, of course, also control that from the editor screen. And last but not least, I can control the level of the delay, which you'll see up in the router area up here. And the router area only has two parameters, kill dry and delay level. And the delay level controls how loud the delay part of the sound is. Your dry signal is coming straight through, so it always has the same level. The delay level controls the wet signal only. The kill dry only works when the pedal is on, and it basically turns off my dry sound altogether, so I can show you how that works. Turning kill dry on. So now I have no dry sound. This is useful for if you want to get like a backwards guitar sound and some other creative use you might think of that I can't. But now I put it back on. So I've dialed in my delay time kind of where I want it. I've dialed in the feedback kind of where I want it. And I have some high cut and some low cut dialed in. Now, something that you might know is that when you have analog delays, they have a tendency to saturate a little bit, kind of add just a tad of, not distortion, but just a bit of grit to the delay sound. So I'm going to add that now using the saturation parameter. I'm going to start here with 10 dB, which perhaps is a little bit too much for what I like. Maybe a bit more. Kind of like that. So now I controlled the delay time, the feedback, saturation, high cut and low cut. Another thing I have the option of doing, and this is something that you don't get with other delay pedals, is that you can kind of take all advantage of all the different types of delay and ways you can modify the delay and kind of bring it together to get your specific sound. And in this case, if I wanted to add dynamic delay, something that's typically only used with digital delays, I can actually add that to the analog delay as well. And I'm going to add a little bit of that because I kind of like the delay to ring out a little bit louder when I don't solo. So for that we have 3 parameters. There's dynamic delay sensitivity, and this controls when the dynamic delay is kind of triggered. So I'm going to move it all the way up to minus 50 dB, and this means that as soon as you get a signal into the delay, more or less, it starts to duck a little bit. So I have to stop playing entirely before it stops ducking. Damping controls how much damping I want, so how much lower do I want the delay to be when I'm playing. And I just want to bring it down by a few dB, not too much. And last but not least, I have the release time, and this is how fast the delay is returned to its normal loudness when I'm not playing. And I want that to be fairly fast. So I'll set it around 100 milliseconds. Maybe a little bit more, like that. The last parameter we have here is the reverse delay time, and that is used only when you use reverse delay, and there's a template for that over here. So now I have my delay. Let's hear how it sounds. So as you can hopefully hear, it ducks the signal just a little bit when I'm playing, and it brings it back up again when I'm not playing. So the delay repeats doesn't get in the way when I'm playing fast runs. So another thing I have the option of doing is adding modulation to the delay repeats. And the thing is that Flashback X4 and the regular Flashback pedal runs the entire modulation block that you will find with Corona Chorus, Shaker Vibrato and Vortex Flanger. So I have the option of adding any of those modulation types to the delay repeats only. And in this case I want some classic vibrato, just to add a little bit of wow and flutter. Not too much, just a subtle thing. So all the modulation parameters are down here in the modulation block. And the first thing I'm going to do is choose modulation type. And I'm going to go with vibrato. I'm going to turn the modulation on. Then I'm going to add some speed just to make it a bit faster. I'm going to set it around 1.3 Hertz to see how that works. I'm going to take depth 1 and add some of that. Let's see, I'll do it a little bit extreme just so I'm sure that something is actually happening. And the last thing I'm going to add is the mix, which basically allows me to bring in the amount of modulation that I want. And because it's a vibrato effect, which is typically a 100% effect, I'm going to add 100% of mix, that is all wet signal. So you can hear there's a bit of modulation going on now. I'm going to add some more just to exaggerate it a little bit. Now there's a lot of modulation going on. Tons of modulation going on. So to avoid getting seasick, I'm going to back that down to a level that I like. Kind of like that. So as you can see on the editor screen, there's a lot of other options in terms of modulation. And it's too much for this video, at least, to go into depth with what every one of them does. But some of these parameters relate to some very specific algorithms inside the pedal. So for example, you can see that I don't have just one depth control, I actually have depth 1, 2, and 3. And these are used in conjunction with the tri-chorus. So if I wanted to add tri-chorus to a sound, I could use all 3 depth and all 3 delay times, because there's 1, 2, and 3 of those as well, to basically dial in very specifically the kind of chorus that I want. And to help you guys out a little bit, we also made sure for all these different modulation effects and for the delay and reverb that there are some tri-chorus templates in there, because it can be a little tricky to dial in from the get-go. But I'm sure once you get the hang of it, you'll love basically tweaking this stuff. So let's just assume now that I'm happy with the sound. If this wasn't a video, I'd probably spend a little more time tweaking this. It's kind of addictive. But I really want to show you something else as well, because this is where it gets really, really cool. Because what you can say now is that I've dialed in kind of my basic TonePrint sound. And this is actually what I've done with tons of artists in some of the videos that you guys might have seen. And that is come up with a basic sound that they like. But what differs TonePrint from a preset is the fact that a TonePrint is not a static setting. It's not a fixed setting that's just, this is the way it is. It's actually a reconfiguration of the entire pedal. And you know, if you buy a pedal, there's a range to the knob. You decide how the knobs react, what they do. And you can do that with the editor as well. And you do that over here in the modifier window. And maybe this requires a bit of an explanation, because basically you can assign any of these knobs, or at least some of them, to do specific things, that is, control certain parameters. You can also decide the range of these parameters. And the way you do it is the stuff that's taking place here over on the left side of the screen. And at the top, you can see kind of a graph. And this sets the values for the knob. And you actually also see the little yellow dot here kind of move. So when I'm moving the delay time knob, because this is what we're looking at right now on the editor screen, you can actually see the value, and you can see the knob moving through the parameter range. And in this case, what you can see is that the minimum delay time for this particular sound that I've done right now is 20 milliseconds, and I'm all the way down here. And now I'm moving up to 300 milliseconds, 600, 1500 milliseconds. And what you can see is that there's actually a range all the way up to 7 seconds of delay in this particular TonePrint, or in this particular sound. And it goes very fast at the end. So from this point, at 1500 milliseconds, it just shoots up to 7 seconds very fast. So let's say I wanted to change that. I would never use, personally, I'd never use 7 seconds of delay. I'd probably use a second at the most. So what I want to do is 2 things. I want to bring the maximum delay time down, and I also want to make sure that when I set the delay time knob at 12 o'clock, I get my preferred around 400 milliseconds of delay time. And doing this is really easy. You can do it in one of 2 ways. I'm going to do it in the first way, because I can't do both at the same time. I'm basically going to grab this this little dot up here, and I'm going to bring it down, and you can see that the maximum delay time is now moving down, and I'm going to bring it all the way down to, let's see here, I now brought it down to 1010 milliseconds. So if you're super anal about getting it right, what do? You can't be so precise. Well, you can also click the number, and you can actually just type 1000, and now you have 1000 milliseconds of maximum delay time. And you'll actually notice if I do this now, it goes to a maximum of 1 second or 1000 milliseconds. So obviously that means that I want to change some of the other parameters, because now I have kind of a weird range of the pedal. It actually goes from the center position of 600 milliseconds, which is the dot here in the middle, and then it goes up to 1500 and then back to 1000. So obviously I want to bring that down a little bit. So let's say I want to have that at 750 milliseconds. The middle one, I want it to be my preferred 400 milliseconds of delay time. and then I want to make a nice even spread here, 250. So now I have a more or less smooth curve all the way through, allowing me to control my delay time from 20 milliseconds all the way up to 1000 milliseconds. But the last thing I want to do is I actually want to make the delay time even shorter, because sometimes I like to use the delay as a chorus or as kind of a doubling effect. So I want to make sure I can get all the way down to 7 milliseconds, because then you can actually almost turn your delay into a chorus. Let's hear that just for the fun of it. So now you'll notice if I take the sound here, I'll just put it in the middle. If I turn it all the way up, I get 1 second of delay time. And if I turn it all the way down, I actually get a chorus sound. I can use the delay time, the delay level, to bring in more of the chorusing effect. Like that. So now I remap the delay time knob to do what I want. But there's another thing, because the editor not only allows you to control the range of the pod, and it also allows you to control what the pod meter controls in terms of parameters. And in this case, I have chosen delay time. But maybe you'll notice that there's 2 additional parameters below those. And that's because you can actually control up to 3 different parameters with the same knob at the same time. And because this is kind of a take on an analog delay, what I want to do is I want to increase the darkness and the saturation of the delay as I turn up the delay time, because that's how an analog delay works. Without getting too technical, analog delays consist of these buckets that pass the signal from one to the other, and you kind of get some signal loss every time you pass from one bucket to the next. And the longer delay time you have, the more buckets you have to pass, and hence the more signal loss you have. So I'm gonna recreate that using the editor. So what I'm gonna do now is down here in the knob selection, I'm gonna choose 2 additional parameters, and you'll notice that every single one of the parameters that are in the editor can be chosen here and can be controlled with one of the knobs should you want to. And I'm gonna choose the feedback high cut. And what I want to do now is what I've said before. I have the feedback high cut at 1.12 kilohertz. So I'm going to set that as my minimum up here, like this. And then I want to make it gradually darker as I turn up the delay time. Kind of like this. So let's see how that looks. So as you can see, I'm moving the delay time knob up and down, and as I'm moving it up, the high cut is more intensified, so the delays get darker. You should also be able to hear that. If I do this, turn it down a bit, and if I turn them up, now they get really dark. And of course, I can always dial in exactly how much of that high cut I want, but for now, let's just keep it there. In the same way, with an analog delay, you also get more saturation as the delay times get longer. So for my last parameter, I want to add some saturation, which I do here. And you can now see that I have a yellow, a red, and a blue line. And these represent the 3 curves that I'm controlling. And you can of course choose which one you want to edit at any time. And you can see them all move at the same time. So what I'm going to do here is I'm going to take the 8 dB of saturation that I had in my default sound, and I'm going to make that the minimum amount of saturation I can get. And then I'm going to add more from there. And I don't want too much at the top, because then it gets really gnarly. But let's just try out with 14 dB. And then I'm going to make a nice curve here, gradually adding more grit to the sound as I turn up the delay time. So you notice it goes 8, 10, well 10 again, we'll go 11, 12 and then 14. So let's hear that in action. So here is very short delay time. So if I turn it all the way up now, I should get quite a lot of grit when I hit the strings. So now I have one knob, the delay time knob, controlling three things at the same time. The delay time, the feedback high cut, and the saturation to kind of recreate that analog delay vibe. So as you can see, this is very powerful and you can use it for an awful lot of different things. For example, one of the things that we do is when you have a reverse delay, we've made it so that, and that's even on the standard reverse sound that you get with the Flashback X4 or a Flashback, when you turn the feedback all the way down, we kill the dry sound so you can actually simulate backwards guitar. If you turn the feedback up just a little bit, we bring in the dry sound again to give you those kind of ethereal shoegazer type sounds. So with one knob you can actually control several things, and in this case it's the kill dry that we map to that. But you can also remap a pot entirely. So if you go, well, I really don't use the delay time, I always play with 400 milliseconds of delay, you can turn it into a, pretty much anything you want. You can control saturation, you can control the type of modulation, or you can map speed and depth together on a modulation knob to basically allow you to tweak how much modulation you want, or, well, whatever you can think of. So what we've done now is that we map the delay time knob. So let's say I want to map out the next knob, and that's the feedback knob. And over here, you can see the knobs that you can map for each of the pedals. So depending on the pedal that you have, there's going to be a specific number of pots you can kind of tweak around with. And that's because some of these knobs are analog, so we can't mess with those. It's only the digital knobs we can control. So I'm going to choose the next one, which is the feedback knob. And as you can see right now, what I've done is that it's a linear curve going from 0% of feedback all the way up to 99. And what I want to do is be able to get it into crazy self-oscillating stuff because I like that kind of noise. So I'm going to do something very simple. I'm going to grab the top position of the feedback knob, and you'll notice right now if I do this and I turn the feedback all the way up, it's going to continue, but it's going to die out eventually because the maximum value right now is 99%. But I'm going to bring it up to 120%, and what happens then is this. So now it's going to keep building and building and building and building, which I like. And we can bring it back down again. And that's the only thing I want to do for this particular sound. So now I'm happy with my tone print, and the last thing I have to do is store. And the way you store in the TonePrint Editor is very simple. I just press Store to Pedal. There's one thing though, I have to make sure that I'm on the right setting here. So I can't store to any of the TC default sounds. It has to be, for Flashback X4, it has to be one of the 4 TonePrint settings. On the regular TonePrint pedals, it has to be the TonePrint setting. But I want to store it to TonePrint setting 1, which is what I have here. And I'm going to press Store to Pedal. And now it's stored. So that's basically it. Now I stored my TonePrint into the pedal and I have it ready to be used for a preset or whatever I like at any time I want to. So have fun with the editor. I hope you guys will experiment a lot and create a lot of cool sounds.